Hey brothers and sisters, God bless you. I just want to throw a video together here. Brett Hancock, this is my channel, YouTube channel, and so just want to throw a Bible study tools thing together. I was just thinking about there's a couple tools that I use quite often. I use it on my smartphone and it really helps me a lot, so they might help you. So I'm just going to walk through how to use those, how I use those. BibleHub.com and BibleGateway.com. So we're just going to walk through those. Alright, God bless you. BibleHub.com, you can, in the Old Testament, if you use the interlinear link as I'll be showing, it will take you to the Hebrew. It'll take you to a Hebrew lexicon. I mean, the same way I'm going to present, of how you approach the New Testament at BibleHub.com, again, a Greek interlinear, you have that for the Hebrew on that site as well. And there's lots of other tools out there. That just happens to be the one that it's very, I'm very familiar with, and very, I just find very useful and very easy to use and stuff. So anyway, I'm going to share about that. Also, BibleGateway.com. A lot of good advantages on that website. Not only to look at various audio narrations of different translations of the Bible, but also just being able to compare side by side. King James, New King James, NASB, ESV, NIV, ASV, RSV, whatever. All these different translations. You can put them side by side. And even if you're studying Greek, a nice tool that's on there is, Bill Mounts, who's a very well-known, Koine Greek, New Testament Greek teacher. Has got a nice little translation tool that's accessible from the pull-down menu from BibleGateway.com that I'll show, that is called a reverse interlinear. So basically, starting with some English text and translation, and then under each word, and not using Greek alphabet, but using our alphabet in English, spelled that way, kind of phonetically or whatever. The root word or the basic word that you would see in the lexicons and stuff, and under each word. So that can be really useful for people that are just starting to study Greek, and be very helpful, or even people that maybe aren't, that kind of want to be able to look at that and then go to a lexicon, that's what you're going to see at BibleHub.com. I'm going to show you. I use from that website. It uses Strong's Greek lexicon. So anyway, so there's a little bit of an intro here, and then we're going to get into it. Okay, so here I am on BibleHub.com. So let's see. So yeah, if you just type it in, BibleHub.com, that's how you start out. Looks a little different on your phone, but of course, right? Like for instance, on your phone when you bring it up, instead of saying interlinear, it'll say INT, because it's got the little mobile menu here that is abbreviated rather than all these long words and stuff. But anyway. So starting here, you could do what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you some things using Greek for the New Testament. You could do the equivalent of that in Hebrew for the Old Testament, and maybe I'll do something real quick just to show you, but I'm basically going to just show you. We're going to start out the New Testament, and you can do the equivalent of that, like I said, in the Hebrew and stuff. So anyway, so we'll just go, I'll just pick a random passage here, and we'll go to Romans chapter 1. So if you go there, and then you click on interlinear, first of all, I guess I'll just show you. Just take a look. You can see different English translations here for that same verse, which is a nice comparison if you want to do that. Yeah, look at all these different translations. There's even a commentary down there. I don't really care much for Matthew Henry's commentary, but some people do. But yeah, it's just amazing. So now if I click interlinear, it's immediately going to put it in interlinear mode. Now if you're not familiar with an interlinear, it's a really nice tool. I started using one, I don't know, 6 or so years ago, before I eventually started studying New Testament Greek myself. But yeah, basically, so Strong's is pretty much industry standard sort of lexicon. It's not the only one, but these numbering system is as you just go through from alpha, which is the first letter in Greek, to omega, and you sweep through. They have everything organized where if I was to go all the ones starting with alpha, they're going to have number 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is just the numbering system that we'll take a look at for each word in the Greek New Testament, right? So all the words in the Greek New Testament are in this lexicon. So a Greek lexicon is a nice like sister tool that goes together, a nice complementary tool that goes together with the interlinear. So interlinear, you have a real quick, brief, word for word sort of translation. It's not a thorough explanation of a word. So if you wanted to, obviously I don't need too much more than when I see Yesu, that's Jesus, right? So, but when I look at a word like, you know, aphorismenos, I haven't pronounced that before. Aphorismenos. So if I want to look at that, I'll show you a little bit of the parsing tool for that too. But I don't want to make this into a Greek video, just basically show how to use these tools. But if you wanted to see more of an explanation other than just having been set apart, let's go click on that, that number 873, and Strong's Concordance. That's the number that's been assigned. Strong's Greek Concordance in their lexicon. This is what it's been assigned. So the basic plain vanilla form of that is first person singular. I, whatever the verb is. So if it was, the verb for to go, it would say I go, or I choose, or I eat, or whatever. In this case, it's I rail off, separate, place apart is the way they're defining that. They're saying part of speech is it's a verb. Here's the phonetic pronunciation of it. Aphorizo would be the way you would say that. That would basically, I separate, I place apart. And then as you conjugate that verb into the various forms, then you end up with these. Here's the one we were looking at, which is kind of when it's in the middle voice. And some of you are going to know Greek a little bit, some of you aren't. And like I said, I'm not going to make this a Greek video. But would be a participle, present participle version of that in the middle voice. So if I click on that, that's what we were just looking at. Well, actually, it's perfect. It's not present, but it is. The middle P is participle. So basically, I'll just show you this parsing key here real quick. The V stands for verb, R stands for perfect, P in the middle there starts for participle, M/P is middle/passive voice, and then this dash, whenever it's a participle, now you're going to have this last trailer part here, NMS, which is going to describe its, it's how it's parsed, or how it's declined as as if it's an adjective or a noun. So without going into explanation about Greek, I mean, participles are kind of in one sense part an adjective, but they're really derived from verbs. So it's a verb acting as an adjective kind of thing. But anyway, so that's why it's got the NMS there. So the N would be for nominative case, M is for masculine gender, and S is for singular number. So it's either singular or plural. And so when I bring up this parsing key, you click on that, you can see all this kind of information. So V is for verb, to see what kind of part of speech it is. Like I said, if it's a verb, then this is relevant, the first, second, third person business. Tense, all this stuff, present tense, imperfect, future. So all that stuff is relevant if it's a verb. Mood is relevant if it's a verb. Now, if it's a noun or an adjective, then this other business about case and number and gender is relevant. And when it's a participle, which is part verb, part what I just said, then all these things are going to come into play as I just described. I can go back through that again. But so for voice, active voice, middle voice, passive voice, or if it's present tense or perfect tense, then then they both, middle, passive, the way it's anyway, the way the endings or whatever, I forget what they call that, the morphology, anyway, so yeah, so all those endings, let me go back here, of the actual word. So when we look at the basic, and again, I don't want to make this into a Greek video, and I'm starting to head in that direction, I don't want to do that, but when you take the stem, the major root part of it, and lop off the ending, and kind of put it together with this ending here, well, now you end up with the participle, and in this case, and so like I said, all this stuff comes into play based on that parsing key. So I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to go anything about Greek here other than that, and that's the purpose of this. It's really nice. If you know about that stuff, then make use of it. If you don't, I encourage you, don't be intimidated by it, because despite I'm not doing a very good job explaining it, there was, 3, 4, 5 years ago. I mean, I didn't know what this was. 3 years ago, I didn't know what this was. But yeah, it's not rocket science. I mean, just go ahead and tackle into it. There's a lot of good videos out there. I mean, if you just look at my channel and look at some of the stuff I have for Greek, there's some good stuff right there to get you started at some of my playlists there. So anyway, but there's lots of stuff out there on the web. So when you're looking at it in this view here, and this is a really bad example because there's only one verse for this particular word, but using this exact form where it's perfect and it's participle, middle passive, nominative, case, masculine, gender, singular, in number, which is this word right here, like we are just discussing. There's only one verse in the New Testament that's exactly like that. But all these other ones here, there's, in this case, only one for each of those. But there's lots of words that actually have a lot more examples and stuff. So here's a word. We'll just use that. Okay, aphobos. So that's like phobos means fear, and this is not fearful. So here they're saying without fear. But here, yeah, you see a bunch of verses using the same exact form of it. So here, it's a adverb, ADV, standing for adverb. So again, looking at that parsing key, it'll show you that ADV right here, is an adverb, right? And so that's what that says, right? Now if I click on any of these, I'll just pick this one at random, and I'm looking at that, like, oh, let's take a look at that verse. So when it does, it goes into this mode here that says Greek, that little icon right there. That's the mode it puts it in. And so now you can look at it with Strong's over here on your left, convenient, and click on any of those. And here's the transliteration using our English alphabet of the Greek alphabet here, equivalent between those two. And then here's a little short definition, so you can kind of read through it. And of course, Greek is going to read a little bit awkward sometimes because Greek is not a one-for-one sort of exchange between English. It's not the same language, just spelled differently. It's kind of a little different. So it's quite a bit different. It's definitely much more sophisticated than English. But anyway, here's all the grammatical sort of business. So here it would say, like, if we were to use that parsing key again, like we were just looking at, conjunction. This is a verb. The V stands for verb. N stands for noun. Verb. This be the aorist tense. Subjunctive mood. Active voice. Third person singular is what that is. So that's what some of this stuff is here. But yeah, so I encourage you to take a look at that. Now down here they just have some of the, in the recent past, last 500 years, just out of, we got over 5,800 Greek manuscripts that have been found. But yeah, so this is just a few of them. But so here's a couple variants of Textus Receptus, 1550 AD, 1894, Tickendorf, 8th edition. So he made, this is the 8th revision that he made for his Textus Receptus. I think it was Textus Receptus, but anyway, Tickendorf's version of his critical text. Here's Greek Orthodox. Here's what they use, and this is dated 1904. But anyway, you could just compare some of these. These are nice, where I use them a lot of times just for a quick comparison between some manuscripts. It's a nice, it's a nice thing to be able to see little variations. You can see from what we're seeing with some of these up top here, really aren't that different, here. But when you get down here, the tail end of this, there's a little chunk there that's kind of different, That's not always the case, but sometimes it is, Here, even this up here matches this down here, but, this little Greek Orthodox manuscript, there's this little chunk there, it's kind of different. So that's interesting, So, I've been getting into textual criticism, which is the study of actually looking at ancient manuscripts and kind of, supposed to have the goal of trying to figure out, by just pulling all the different ones we have together, to try and figure out what most likely is the what the apostle or what the prophet had penned in the first place, not just through the centuries, the scribes, making their copies and stuff, but actually trying to, trace back, kind of a Sherlock Holmes sort of thing to figure out, what was the original rendering for a particular passage and stuff. So it's kind of interesting. Here's a lot of different translations. You probably recognize some of those: King James, NIV, ESV. Um, so yeah, there's a GNT, Somewhere Good News translation. Not that GWT. I'm not sure what that is. Good Word, God's Word translation. Okay, I'm not familiar with that. But anyway, any of those, you could click on any of those. Also, let's see. Yeah. So anyway, going to a particular passage, you can do that with these pull downs. These are all verse by verse. But if I was to go to this pull down here and click on interlinear chapter, now I'm not just going to look at it, because if I do verses, that's kind of what we were looking at before. We were just looking at a single verse, right? Like here, just verse 10, 1 Corinthians 10. But if I go chapters, now I'm looking at the whole chapter, 1 Corinthians 10, which is nice. I can just read through the whole thing. Now if I, maybe, like for me, studying Greek, sometimes I don't want to quote-unquote cheat by looking at the English underneath it. I just want to see the Greek. I just want to read the Greek. So doing that, I can go down here under Greek, is that subheading, and just read any of these, right? So let's say I pick Textus Receptus. So there's some variants of Textus Receptus out there. I showed a few of them there. But I mean, I could just sit there and start reading it in Greek, and that's nice, man. And if I want to go to the next page, just click this over here, go to the right, then I'll go to, actually it's going to take me from 1 Corinthians 16, which is the last chapter of 1 Corinthians, take me right into 2 Corinthians chapter 1. And so, yeah, Stephanus, Textus Receptus is the version of this. If I go this way, it's going to take me, backwards, take me from chapter 16 to chapter 15, and so on. Here's some different icons. I haven't really explored these too much. That might be something you want to check into. Here's some different commentaries. Just a lot of different commentaries. I like John Wesley myself. That's a good one. I can now look at 1 Corinthians 15 instead of in the interlinear mode. I can just look at what did John Wesley have to say, verse by verse, kind of thing. Like I said, different versions. Yeah, here's some different ones here. Now let's see if I click on ESV of that. Yeah, so that's going to show ESV. If I click on this, alphabetic listings, let's see, I've never really looked at these, but there's just so much of this tool. I love it. I love this site, BibleHub.com. Yeah. If you're not familiar with Douay-Rheims, that's an English version they did in 1899, I believe it was, of the Latin Vulgate. So instead of it going from Greek to English, it went from Latin to English. And if you know the story of the Latin Vulgate, somewhere just before 400 is where Jerome translated the Greek scriptures into Latin. Up to that point, the church had always been traditionally using, up to that point, the evidence is overwhelming, that they had been using the Greek Septuagint. But then at that point, we have these early Christian writings that are telling the story. Jerome's own writings, talking about how he wrestled with this. The Jews convinced him that the Greek Septuagint was corrupted to go with their Hebrew text. So that's how it ended up using the Hebrew Masoretic, right? Just before 400 as it made its way into Latin Vulgate. And of course, the church became more and more Catholic. It wasn't that way in the period of the 100s, which is the 2nd century. But by the time you get to this point, it was starting to head in that direction big time. And anyway, I'm not going to go too much into that, but yeah, I'll make a video about that sometime. If you want to go to scrollpublishing.com, there's some really good teachings that he's got. That he's really good. David Berceau is really good about objectively presenting information. And sometimes he kind of will clearly distinguish his opinion versus here's the evidence, here's what it says, and he's always given early Christian quotes and all these sorts of things, where a lot of people typically give very few and give more their opinion. But he's got a series on the Septuagint, a couple of them. One of them is called "Why Don't We Read the Bible of the Apostles?" and that's like a 2 CD set. And there's a 3 CD set that is basically called the Septuagint, and it comes from Latin, which means the 70. And yeah, won't go into that anymore. But anyway, here's some different translations here. If I want to look at the Orthodox Jewish Bible, so now you can see a combination of Yiddish, Hebrew influenced, together with English, as they probably use in the temples and stuff. So that's kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, just a lot of different things here. You can just choose from these menus. Um, Study tools here. You can see here's timelines. There's maps available. Libraries. You can even get the Bible Gateway from here. Um, and let's see. Yeah, just a lot of different stuff, different sites. So much of this stuff. I mean, there's so much I haven't explored. But yeah, just some of the stuff I'm showing you is the stuff that I use quite a bit. Like I said, the lexicon for a particular word. That's probably gonna. Okay. So if I click on lexicon, I get kind of a NASB, quick translation versus Greek, transliteration in our English alphabet from this word Adelphoi. Here we got in our alphabet Adelphoi. Strong's, here's the Strong's numbers right in the lexicon. You can click on any of those. Here's a real quick definition for each of those words based on, I'm not sure how this compares to Strong's, but I don't think they're deriving this column from Strong's. This would all be Strong's. So if I use Strong's lexicon for this particular word, euangelion, which in modern Greek they would pronounce that EU into ev, so that's how you would end up taking this word and it become an evangelist or evangelism or something like that, or the good news, which is eventually I think through Latin, as it traveled from Greek to Latin, is how it ended up into the word gospel and stuff. But actually I take that back. Gospel actually, yeah, it comes from a German word, I believe. So, but anyway, we in America are so used to having this word gospel that we oftentimes don't even look under the hood and see, what does the word really mean. But anyway, here's what they say, and I'm not gonna get into that, but that's not really what it is. It's more of like good message rather than good news, and I'm not gonna go into the distinction there, but. So anyway, but if I clicked on that, it would take me to Strong's lexicon here, and that's where we were looking at before. And here's how it's used in the New Testament. There's 12 verses that use this word in that form, the exact word, but in this particular form. In this particular form, there's 41. In this particular form, it's 23 of them. And you can see some of them over here. If I click on 76, then it's going to give me all of them, and I can just kind of look down, scan down through. I could even hit Control F if I wanted to. Look something up or something, or say preaching instead of preached, or if I want to do something like that. And now over here's alphabetically from the Greek alphabet, not English alphabet, some words that are similar. They kind of put here that may or may not be useful to you. So yeah, so that's the majority of how I use this. Now if we were to go to Hebrews, I'll just pick the book of Jeremiah. Similar sort of thing. So here we are looking at the interlinear of a Hebrew passage. Now I'm not a Hebrew person, I don't know Hebrew, but that's why I kind of start with the Greek New Testament, because I'm more into the Greek and stuff. But everything that I just showed you would apply likewise in Hebrew here for the Old Testament. So just knowing Hebrew, you probably know this already, that they read from right to left as opposed to left to right like we do in the West. So anyway, I hope this has helped you. On your I use it on my phone a lot, and a lot of times just quick on my phone, instead of like using the menu to go interlinear chapters verses. A lot of times on my phone I'll just stick my finger up here, because it's a touch screen, right, and I'll just back up here and just type it like that, and then boom, I got the chapter, instead of actually going through the menu. So actually, that's how I learned how to do it, until I eventually found out that, I actually can do that from the menu and stuff. So through interlinear verses, or interlinear chapters, sorry. Parallel text, I will show you that real quick. That's nice. Compares different English translations side by side. Okay, well, we're in interlinear form right now, so it's comparing interlinears. But let me back up a little bit. Back to English, and yeah, so go back to where I was at. Let's see, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, that's right, parallel text. Okay, so let's see, let me get my bearings straight here. So here we go, under this menu, which, let's see, I guess I'll have to Okay, maybe I get there from that. Okay. Oh, parallel text. Here we go. Here we go. Parallel text. I was looking for it. Here we go. So there we go. So that's kind of what we were looking at before. Similar view to what we were looking at before. Actually, I think this is a few additional ones. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm not sure if we had that view when we were looking at it when I click on the Greek icon there. Did we have 9 down here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Okay, looks like we got one more than otherwise. But anyway, if I get out of interlinear mode and just go to parallel, okay, so now I'm comparing a lot of different English translations. So NIV, New Living, ESV, Berean Study Bible, the different variations of King James Bible, NET, New English translation is what that is. Yeah, if you don't know some of these, just click on it. So NET, if I didn't know that. Actually, I guess it doesn't really tell you, did it? I thought it might do that. But it would just, yeah, give you the whole passage in the NETS version as opposed to just comparing verse by verse. But let's see. Yeah, American King James. So yeah, just comparing a lot of different ones side by side. You could do it this way. And I'm not sure. Let's see here. Let's see, multi. Click on that. Yeah, so this is Greek down through here, but now over here is English, so that's kind of handy. And then here's Spanish over here, so that's kind of handy as well. So, but it's just looking at a single verse at a time. But yeah, it's just so much. I guess this is commentary. Yeah. And again, you get there from commentary menu, select which one you're interested in. Different sermons, different topics, like kind of theme related sort of thing. And again, here's some quick different translations. NETS, New English Translation versus King James, NASB, ESV. So if I click on ESV, now I'm just looking at the whole chapter exclusively in ESV mode, and yeah, so pretty handy. I've never really used this search here. I know if I click here, it takes me to the page to where now I can click in any of these. Like if I know the Strong's number I'm looking for, 390 or whatever. I'll just type in a number there, 304. Yeah. So that's going to take me to Strong's lexicon for that particular word. Of course, he doesn't know whether it's Greek or Hebrew that I wanted, so I would select which one I wanted. But yeah, it's comparing a couple different lexicons here. So here's Thayer's versus some of these others. And that would take me back to where we were at before for the Strong's. For that particular word that I was looking at. Oh, sorry, here's 304 right here. Or 3044 we were looking at, yeah. 3044 is what I typed in. So, yeah, it takes me there. Or, no, if I was like, no, I wanted it in Hebrew, 3044 in the Strong's Lexicon or Concordance. The Hebrew indexed word for that number. That's how I would get there. So, yeah. So that was just typing in these things here. So if you get play around with those and get familiar with those, that's hopefully a good starter. Some interesting stuff here. Yeah, here's some stuff here with Atlas for maps. If you want to look at apocryphal books, here you go. Brenton Septuagint translation of some of those. It's really good stuff. So anyway, I hope that helps you out. God bless you. Okay, so let's go to BibleGateway.com now. Let's take a look at this. So that's the other tool I find pretty useful. Pretty much from this pull-down menu. I don't really use these. The study, these kind of come together. Either one, they're tied together. But under the study, I don't really use this much. I'm not going to say don't use it. I mean, to each his own. Yeah, same with apps. I mean, there's some apps I guess you could maybe maybe put them on your phone or something. I don't really have any comments. I haven't really used them, so they might be good. I don't know. Same with the store. I mean, getting things from their store. Feel free to check any of that out. But yeah, the main things I check or that I use is passage lookup, keyword search. That actually in this recent version, which it's been probably a year now or something. I don't even know. Probably more. it's like combined. You can separate it like that and get into this sort of business here, keyword search versus, and maybe that'll help you refine and do this sort of business for selecting certain types of books. Or I just, for me, most of the time you can type in a keyword. I could say Grace, and then whatever version you have selected here, it'll look it up for that version. So if whatever you're familiar with, like for me, years ago I used to be a part of a church that they use the NIV. So despite the fact that I don't really use the NIV that much, I'm more like reading the New Testament in Greek now. Since I have that memorized from 15, 20 years ago, whatever. I'll a lot of times know where words are in that version. So I'll start there, and once I get all the particular passages I'm looking for here, you can see for grace the number of times that word comes up for the NIV in each of these versions, right? So, I mean, likewise, if I did it for this, Authorized King James, select that. Actually, let's see, did I do that? Maybe I did do that for Authorized King version, but so yeah, let's go to Good News Translation, for instance, and I push this button here. This is going to get the number of hits, or the number of times the occurrences of the word grace in those books. So here for this particular version, Good News Translation, they've got some of the apocryphal books. So in the book of Sirach, the word grace is in there twice, kind of thing. So anyway, whatever you're looking for, whatever version, ESV, click that. That's the number of times that word comes there. So to me, it's kind of a starting point. And then once I bring that particular passage up, let's say Hebrews 2 verse 9, I can click on this little icon, and now I can compare. This is ESV, what I started with, and now, okay, it comes up with NIV. Well, I could change that if I wanted, or I could just hit it again. And let's put 3 side by side. So now we're comparing King James versus the old King James versus NIV versus ESV, and you can, read them here or whatever. It's kind of nice. Just hit the X to get rid of that. If I want to hit the audio, hit that little thing there. It's going to play it audio-wise. Now it won't just play that verse; it's going to play the whole chapter.
Give the more earnest heed to the thing.
So anyway, so I was going to show this. This is I was going to show this anyway from the pull-down menu. I'll show you in a second, but since we got it up, I can select any of these audios that they have. Now this is just the English versions they have here. From here, see that it says English. Down here it says Portuguese. There's a bunch of different languages, for any of these particular versions. Here's Romanian. Different versions. Farsi, I think that's Iranian, maybe from Iran or Iraq. I think it's Iran. Kiswahili would be this right here for Kenya and some of those countries in Africa. Japanese Bible, here you go. A couple different versions. I don't know what that is. That might be Thailand, or I think maybe. Yeah, that's probably what that is. So.
พระธรรมฮีบรูบทที่2
Yeah.
เหตุฉะนั้น
So there you go. So you got these different versions. Here, I'll just play that.
เราต้องเอาใจใส่สิ่งที่เราได้ยินได้ฟังให้มากยิ่ง
There we go.
الرسالة إلى العبرانيين والفصل الثاني.
Okay, NIV dramatized.
Chapter 2. We must pay the most careful attention, therefore, to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away.
Okay, so that's the audio. It's very, very useful. I think it's very useful. I've got some audio versions on my phone, MP3 format, and as of late, I did that. But other than that, I've been using this for quite a while. Also, allaudiobible.com for YouTube. I know it's NIV, but it's pretty nice the way it's dramatized and stuff. And I learned a lot from it and stuff. So a lot of people don't like the NIV. So anyway, it's a good starting point. And let's see what else I'm going to show you. So yeah, I can get rid of this. Just click this. Another thing is if I click this little, it looks like a little gear. Click on that right there. I can enable and disable any of these. So if I want to get rid of verses, Bible verse, just unclick that. Gets rid of the verses. Headings, I can get rid of headings. you know. So now what I have up here doesn't really show a distinction, but if I click headings, I know, for instance, you know, the NIV has a lot of Bible headings that, you know, uninspired translators have put those in there, and they can be useful. They can also mislead sometimes too, so be really careful. Sometimes the heading will actually say something and put it in a certain context that really the text doesn't really say that. But it is easy and nice that I got these headings: warning to pay attention, Jesus made fully human. So yeah, I mean, it's nice. Here we're going to see Jesus greater than Moses. So those headings, now if I want to get rid of those, go back to the little gear and just click uncheck the heading. If I want to get rid of any red letters, let's go to a passage that would have red letters. Let's say Luke chapter 12, that would have Jesus' words in red letter. So if I want to get rid of that, I could do that, uncheck that, and make it black. If you want to have the distinction of Jesus speaking versus not, or whatever. Cross-reference, this is nice because if I click on that, that will actually a lot of times show me the Old Testament passage where whatever is being quoted there. So here's Jesus speaking to the Pharisees, Sadducees, and it'll say, well, not always Old Testament cross-reference, but a lot of times New Testament as well. So here we've got Mark 4:22. It's correlating with. So again, these are uninspired translators and copyists, and or not copyists, but translators that are put these tools in there that, you know, just use them with caution. Sometimes they're really good and these guys are accurate, and every once in a while they're actually, based on their opinions, it's not really right. So, you know, in my opinion. So, yeah, click on some of this stuff here. Hebrews 10:31. You know, so this is saying that this particular passage correlates to that. I'm trying to find one here that might have Old Testament. And let's see, here's a cross-reference. So here, it's cross-reference into the book of Job, so Old Testament, kind of thing, even Psalms, whatever. So there's a lot of passages, like let's go to Hebrews, for instance. Chapter 1, there's a lot of Old Testament prophecies that are called out in Hebrews, and in the Gospels too, but I just want to show something real quick. So here, this little quote here, you are my son, today I've become your father, or today I've actually begotten you, is really a better way of saying it, but you know, that's the way the NIV translated it. So that's quoting from a few different passages. Psalms 2, yeah, Psalms 2 verse 7. I mean, you are my son, today I've become your father, today I've begotten you. And I will be his father, and he will be my son. And that would be 2 Samuel chapter 7. Yep, verse 14. Let all God's angels worship him. Yeah, so now you're not going to see it read that way in our Masoretic text Bibles, which most Protestant, even Catholic Bibles, are using Masoretic. The Septuagint, like the Greek Orthodox would use a Septuagint, that would read that way. A lot of passages from the Old Testament, they really match better the Septuagint. That's a long story I won't go into, but yeah, if you compare that to your King James, NIV, ESV Bibles or whatever, a lot of these, they won't match up, right? But if you compare it to the Septuagint, you'll see they do. But anyway, that's what these cross-references are. If you wanted to get rid of those, like I said, just go up to this gear. You could uncheck that. You know, maybe there's a reason why you do that. Any footnotes that maybe they put in a particular version. So what I just did with cross-references, some translations, like let's say we were looking at ESV, it doesn't have cross-references. So it just depends on the translation of whether that's actually the case or not. Footnotes here. You know, here's some footnotes down here. And so that's what, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So that's what you're going to see scattered throughout the text here. Like E and D and C. So those are pointing to those particular footnotes. Here's something he's saying about the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint, correlating this passage here to Deuteronomy 32:43. Because yeah, if you look in our Masoretic text, Protestant Bibles, this passage doesn't line up with that, but it does from Dead Sea Scrolls for that on some of the manuscripts they found, and then the ones that specifically to the Septuagint, Greek rendering and stuff, they do. So anyway, so that's just some of the tools there. You can check, uncheck some of these things, you know. And here's something that sends something to the printer. This right here, I forget exactly what that is. Or if you wanted to share something on favorite social media or something. You could do that. So anyway, yeah, if you wanted to zoom up some of the text, let's say this is too small and you don't have your reading glasses with you, you want to make it bigger, you could do that just very easily and conveniently here. It's kind of nice. So if you want to log in and actually establish your password and stuff, and they'll probably, I haven't done that myself, but they probably got some nice tools there. You can see some tools over here to make use of. I personally don't use any of these, but it'd be something to invest some time in, maybe see if there's something useful there. So give them encyclopedias, some different things. Yeah, some different things there. So I really like BibleGateway.com. There's definitely a lot of good stuff there. There's some stuff that I think you can kind of lead you off in the weeds as well. So just be smart, be wise. All right, God bless you.